Thomas, so this is Borealis's first foray into North America, and you mentioned that Borealis wants to grow more in North America. Yeah. And you also have growth aspirations in the Middle East and in Asia, right? I guess what is the underlying rationale for pursuing growth in North America? Is it mainly the feedstock advantage, or are there other things that you see?
Yeah, I think it's twofold. It's definitely the feedstock advantage that we have here. I think the other need is that we see there's a need to serve the customers globally. As I said, we've had a manufacturing base based primarily out of Europe. So being a presence on the different continents and having a manufacturing base on those continents is important. So we see that also from the customer perspective. In addition to the feedstock advantage, having that local presence is a key driver for that desire to expand globally.
Okay, that's interesting. So I think what you're saying is that you have customers that you serve out of assets in Europe, yep. But these are large customers probably, and for you to kind of retain, maintain, and grow that relationship, you need the ability to serve them from other assets.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's diversifying that supply base is important. Yeah.
Okay. And what's the underlying rationale for growth, let's say in the Middle East or Asia? I can understand, right? Yeah. I mean, that's where there's a lot of demand growth.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think, as I already mentioned, we have a very successful joint venture with Borouge. Yeah. We have a massive integrated complex there in Abu Dhabi and Ruwais. So to expand that further and capture those scale economics, of course, makes a lot of sense. And using that supply base to supply then the Asian market is the rationale to then expand further in the Middle East, but at the same time looking as well at opportunities in Asia to have that local presence as well, in addition to having Borouge as a supply point.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that struck to me is the JVs and the multiple shareholders. It almost seems like Borealis has some differentiated competence in handling multiple stakeholders. How, I guess, how do you see that? And
yeah, it's an interesting question because I don't know if you recall back to the organizational chart, one of our owners is also one of our joint venture partners. So that, of course, creates some interesting discussions, but that's the reality we're faced with. So, but yeah, I think what we see is that when we go into new continents or new territories, there's a benefit of having a local partner who is strong. We, as I said, we don't have really a presence here in the US apart from our compounding plants in New Jersey. So finding that local partner to establish a strong joint venture where we then come in and contribute with what we have to offer the joint venture is a way for us to grow. So future growth can be expanding on joint ventures. It can also be us going in by ourselves, but we see a clear benefit of also using joint ventures as a method to expand and grow.
Yeah. Thank you, Thomas. So, Nathan, just building on this, right? This is an interesting point that at least was underappreciated by me, is that you need assets in multiple parts of the world because your customers are probably also consolidating and growing, and if they don't see you as a supplier who can help them in multiple places, they might go to the others who probably have that ability. To what extent do you see that further down the value chain? I mean, there's a lot of consolidation and private equity dollars flowing into your segment, and I'm curious if there's similar trends are at play.
For sure. I think, with global OEMs, there's always a desire for global specifications, right? So they'd like to be able to go to one partner and say, okay, you're right, and okay, maybe they have two partners because they want dual supply, but for those dual supply, they want to be sure they can get the same products, the same performance, the same quality, consistency across the globe, and so that is one of the things that we've been looking at with our corporate account, or been building on, I should say, with our corporate accounts team. So these corporate account leaders are not just North America or just Europe. They are covering the entire globe for those key accounts. And Nexeo is a little bit unique in that we do have one brand globally for Nexeo. We do have a couple of other affiliated companies, but our main brand is Nexeo, whereas some of the other distributors groups in the world have different companies in each of the regions. So that is something that we're building out. We've built out our import-export capabilities to make sure that where we have a good partner in another region, we can also supply in all regions, right? So Borealis is a good example of that, which is a partner in Europe, but also we import some into North America. So for sure.
And how do you see, like, what is the next big step for distribution as a segment, right? I mean, clearly there's consolidation that's happening. There's probably a lot of, for lack of a better word, but a lot more sophistication in terms of business models, in terms of business processes that the consolidation and private equity investments bring. But I guess what's next, and I think you alluded to some of that with your digital tools and all of that, but I'm curious, like, what do you see happening in the space next from a strategic evolution point of view?
Yeah, I think for sure. I mean, there's a few things that distribution really plays a role in. As the world has become more volatile, it's risk mitigation, right? And that's a huge benefit, and that's why we've invested in our own warehouse, our private fleet, et cetera. Obviously, sustainability is a huge play, and we're building that. But I think I'll take your cue here on the digitalization. I think that's the biggest thing that's going to change. I think a lot of the suppliers are too big in some cases to be agile enough to really make this work. So our view is that we want my Nexeo and our entire system to be seamless, right? Whereas somebody comes to one of our supplier websites, says, hey, I want to order a box of material, that's connected to our back end, to our systems, and the order goes through us, the customer supplied from us, but the customer has only come to the supplier website, right, to place that order. So I also do think the processes are incredibly important, and using artificial intelligence to connect that sales journey, where an engineer is on our website looking at a tech data sheet, and our salesperson gets that pop-up notification in their Salesforce.com dashboard and is able to follow up on that, right? And typically we see by the time somebody contacts the salesperson, right, they're 70% through the sales journey. So all of that front end 70% is incredibly important that you win and you get the attention before that. And obviously if you can connect with them before they've gotten all the way to 70%, you're better off. So I do think that's going to be a big, and it'll be partnering with our suppliers for sure. But I think that's the next big evolution. In January, we sold 5% of our volume through our e-commerce portal. Right?
Oh, wow.
So we launched.
When did you start it?
In June.
Oh wow! Okay, that's fast.
So 5% in January, right? And we're happy about that. But we're happy whatever percentage is coming through there. We want people on that website, paying their bills, looking, it's order tracking, right, where their truck is, at any given moment. So a lot of we're tracking usage, but we're also paying our salespeople incentive plans if they drive traffic through there, because we do think that's the future, right? I mean, the new generation doesn't want to talk to anybody, right? If they can order something online and it's just like Amazon or whatever else, they're going to be happy. So I do think that's a big step forward in distribution, and a trend that will only ramp up.
Yeah, hopefully we are another 5-10 years when all three of us will be sitting here and texting questions to each other.
Yeah,
but,
right.
One follow-up question on the business model for distribution.
Sure.
That's a fairly fragmented space, right? But so there's still more room for consolidation.
Yeah, I do see more room. It's getting consolidated. I'd argue there's been quite a bit of consolidation over the last 10 years. A lot of the mom and pop shops have been bought up, and I expect more will happen in the coming months. And we've obviously participated in that and evaluated many companies. We've purchased 3 in in Europe and integrated into our portfolio, whether it was Nexeo for Nevicolor or our ownership group GPD for the other two. But I do expect a little bit more as the first generation moves to the second generation, moves to the third. For some of these family-owned, privately held companies, you just saw Avient Distribution get bought by another private equity group, and HIG and rebranded as Fermera. But the other thing that does come into play, I was talking about it earlier at the table, is supplier consolidation and supplier M&A and different things that affects distribution as well, right?
Yeah.
Because the chairs all of a sudden move. So we watch that closely as well. So definitely more to come, I think. But it's getting pretty close. There's not, at some point you would expect some of the regulations or the regulators to come in and say, too much concentration in a few different places. So
yeah.
But it's been active.